Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Voices in My Head, the podcast about audiobooks with Basil Sands. And Basil's got a great guest today. Yeah, that's right. He's got Adenrele Ojo Allen. She's really cool. I like her a lot. Yeah, I like her a lot too. Oh, you just kind of have a crush, don't you? Yeah, well, let them watch and they'll see.
Howdy, folks, and welcome back to another episode of Voices in My Head, the podcast where we talk about audiobooks, narration, and all kinds of stuff about the audiobook industry, as well as a plethora of things that have nothing to do with audiobooks. And today, we are here with the beautiful Adenrele Ojo. And I was working on that name. I was practicing. So,
You have said it correctly, Adenrele Ojo.
Adenrele Ojo.
And I shared with you before, I was like, if you are from Nigeria, it's a Yoruba name. They will say Adenrele.
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 Yes.
Adenrele. Okay, there we go. But you're an all-American girl, though, right?
Yeah, I'm an all-American girl. I'm an East Coast baby. Born in Brooklyn. Yes. But I was, you got to represent Brooklyn. That's the thing.
Oh, yeah.
But I was raised in Philly, so I cannot leave out my Philly people. And then I went back to New York to go to college and live there until I moved out here to LA.
Now, how did you get into this bit? How did you get into acting in general first?
My dad that raised me, his name is John Allen. My dad started a theater in Philadelphia in 1966 called Freedom Theater. And so as a child, I wasn't going to go anyplace else, like you're going to be here and this is where you're going to take acting and dance. And so that's kind of where I just grew up in the arts. And my dad was a director. So he ran a theater and he was a director. So there I was while he would be directing, falling asleep on the theater chairs, because it would be late and my mom would be in the show. So I'd be at the theater with my parents. And then, as I got older, I'd be performing myself, taking classes and performing myself. And so as I got older, I also ultimately was majoring in dance. And then when I got to college, I wasn't really excited about the dance. And I was like, okay, I don't want to dance. Like, I love to dance, but I don't want to major in it. And so I thought about doing psychology 101, like doing psychology because I love to work with kids. And I had this mindset as an actor at the time of like, oh, you're going to need a job so you can, afford to act. And I had that mindset. And so, but I took Psych 101 and I was like, oh, this. That's not going to work. I was like, no, this is too much. And I was like, let's just do it. We're just going to go act. And so I majored in drama and theater, got my degree in that. And that is how I've been acting ever since. So
well, it's been your entire life, pretty much.
It really has.
Well, that's pretty good. So, I mean, a lot of kids that grow up in a specific, not just acting necessarily, but kids that grow up with their parents kind of putting them in this place with them don't want to do that same thing when they're adults. So
it's interesting. I honestly, and I feel like this today is like, I don't have anything else I want to do. I don't have any desires. Like, I don't want to be a nurse. I don't want to be a doctor. I don't want to be a lawyer. All those things as a child that you said you wanted to be. My mom was a teacher. So she taught second and third grade, one classroom. So I've never had anything else that I wanted to do. I have things that I enjoy doing, but nothing that says, oh, I remember a casting director asking that question, like, oh, if there was anything you could do if you weren't acting, what would you do? And I was like, teach yoga. And when I really thought about it, when I got home that night, I was like, no, I said, I'd like to be a mom. And that's it. That was the only other thing that excited me outside of doing what it is that I do. I didn't have a career of anything else. So, yeah.
Wow.
My dad actually, when I said I was going to major in acting, he kind of brushed me off like, what? Okay, bye. And I was like, no, see, like I had to prove to him because he was a little bitter because I majored in dance over acting when I was younger. So when I finally said I was going to do it, it was just like, what? Okay. And he was brushing me off. And till I was like, no, Dad, like this is going down. Both my parents always supported me. And my dad is gone, but my mom still lives. She's always in support. So yeah.
So you've done TV, movies, plays, books. You've done
Mhm.
kind of like every part of this industry, of the acting industry. Is there one in particular that you prefer over the others?
I love being on the stage.
Mm,
I love I love the stage. It's live. It happens in real time. It's different every night. The
mm,
audience is different. So some nights they're like with you, other nights they're with you, but they're really quiet, so you're not sure.
mm.
But if the wig falls off on stage, you got to roll with the punches. So it is what it is, and it's honest and truthful. So I love I love stage and how it can affect people in the moment. And if I had to take a second, it would probably be film, just because the characters are always changing. Like audiobooks,
Mm.
the characters are always changing. You do one film and it's done, unless there's a sequel, and then you move on to another film, and then you're creating something totally different. Um, so those would probably might be my two
Mm.
favorites. Yes.
That's pretty cool. And I know the thing you're talking about was stage. I remember a play I did one time. The first time I did a play, that I used to do a lot of one man shows that I
Oh,
did.
that
And
part.
first time I did a show, and I wrote most of them. And so I would get up there and I'd do the thing, and then I noticed, I saw in the darkness in the room, I couldn't really see faces except the first row, and then I saw tears glistening on people's faces. And I was like, dang, I did it. I got them in the moment. I don't know, maybe someone next to them farted and they were just like, their eyes were watering, but it was a pretty emotional play, so it could have been me.
But you were on stage in the moment, but you saw the tears, and then you kind of came outside yourself and was like,
Yep, yep. It's like, man, this is powerful. I can rule the world from here.
yes, you can. You definitely can affect people's thoughts, emotions, uh, you know, perceptions,
Hmm.
all kind of things you can do with theater if people are open to it.
Right.
Yeah.
How does that affect your narration? Because a lot of narrators have been stage actors or TV actors, but a lot of us narration is all we do.
Right.
But if you're doing a bunch of these things, how does that carry over from one style of acting to another?
Well, I feel like the thing to me is the honesty of it. Because even when audiobooks are still telling a story.
Hmm.
And when we're telling this story with all of these characters, we want those characters to be just as true. We don't want, even when you're trying to think of your characters, what they sound like, whether it's a guy, a male, a female, whatever it is, you don't want to make a mockery or of that character. You want the moment to be honest. And there's times when I'm in the booth telling the story and the scene is emotional, and I'm just as emotional because I'm living in the honest moment and I'm trying to live in this moment. So if you listen back to it,
Hmm.
like, oh my goodness, sometimes when I'm in the studio, I have friends who like to want to hear me. So I'll put my phone up and I have a little video on it, and I'll put it up like at a certain point while I'm recording, so they can hear me. They can actually see me recording it, but they can hear it, and they'll get like, wow, that was good, or they're my friends. So, but it's different. Like they're like, oh wow, girl, I didn't know you could do that, or I like that, or oh my, whatever. It's the
Hmm.
same with stage, but I think the whole thing about it is being honest,
Mm.
honest in your storytelling. Film is conversational.
Mm.
It's a much smaller medium, so it's just you in this intimate microphone. So you don't need to yell unless the moment really calls for it. So
Right.
it's just you and the mic and telling this intimate story that you hope people will buy into and fall in line with what is being shared. Mhm.
It's kind of like making a movie in their heads.
Yes,
You're doing all the parts and pieces, but wanting it to look like it's not you doing it.
Exactly. It is. Yes, indeed.
Wow, wow. How did you get started in audiobooks?
So in 2007, yeah, 2007, I was part of an African American theater company out here that is no longer. And Janet Stark, which was Books on Tape at the time, which is now Penguin Random House,
Hmm.
was looking specifically for an African American actress. And if I remember the story correctly, because I had to ask Janet about it, I think she went online and she was looking and she found the company's website.
Hmm.
And she reached out and said, hey, if you have any females that are auditioning, I have this slave story that I'm, looking for a narrator.
Hmm.
And all the females, we all got the email. And so I was like, okay, whatever, I'll try.
Right.
So I reached out to her and she asked me to come in for an audition. And so when I got in there, she gave me these sides to read. And I was like, this is not a slave story. It was like some sci-fi.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay. So I did it. And then Dan Musselman, who's out here in the LA office, Dan, he came in and he was listening. And then he was like, hey, can you read these pages for me? And I was reading them. I was like, oh, this is the slave story. So right after that, I booked the sci-fi, which was part of a George R.R. Martin anthology of stories. Yes. And then I booked the slave story, and I've been doing them ever since.
Wow. Wow.
Yes. That's how that started.
That's a good way to get started. Jump
Yeah.
right in with the big guys. So you came in with the big fish right away.
I did. I really did. And I was very blessed because I do have many colleagues that ask me how to get started.
Mm.
And it's so different now. It is.
Oh, yeah.
It's not the same anymore. And so there was a time when, my trusted colleagues that I felt like, oh, well, do you have a commercial demo? I can take that in so they can just hear what you sound like. And they might be auditioning just like they hear people, and maybe a few got in. But now they're like, no, I need to hear an audio book demo. I want to hear them read. That sounds great, but I need to know that they can read. And like, hey guys, you got to put something together,
Right.
right. To at least put something together. And I do check everybody's demo. If you give me one before I just can't. If you can't read or if it sounds terrible, I can't put my name on that. So
yeah, don't pass that on because that's going to mark you as well as them.
exactly.
Wow.
So,
Wow. So of the genres that you read, you kind of have a relatively even distribution up and down the little Audible genre list there. Do you have a genre that you prefer?
let's see. I actually really don't.
Hmm.
I feel like I get a lot of romance. But lately I feel like a lot of kind of sci-fi stuff and, things of that sort, which I really do enjoy. I just did one, kind of like almost like a YA kind of sci-fi, which was fun. But just trying to get all the authors' names out, the characters, and those kind of things. And you're like, how am I supposed to say this? Like, I need to know what they want because this is not real.
Yeah, with sci-fi and fantasy, that's like the big thing is, there's no way to know how to pronounce this because it's from another world. It's from another universe.
Exactly. So, I really just like a good story. So I don't really have anything that I say, oh, I would prefer to do more romance. I am, just for me, when I go to a movie, I love sci-fi. I'm a Star Wars girl. Like, I love Star Wars. Love it. I have it on VHS. So, yes, I do.
You have a VCR to play it on.
I do. I do. Yes, I do. I still have my VCR. Lucky I don't have my 8-track. But I do have a record player. But I love, like, in general, sci-fi and fantasy movies. Like, just in general, I'm drawn to that. But for me, if it's a good story, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, it doesn't really matter. I just like something that I feel like, oh, this is good, or this is fun, something that's fun.
Is there ever a time that you think somewhere along the way that acting will no longer be fun?
Mm-mm. No. I, I mean, you never know. I've worked behind the scenes, like I've produced on projects, and every time I'm producing, I want to be doing. So because I feel like it changes all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and so no, I mean, I think it's not fun if you're working with evil people, or you got a
Yeah.
crappy director, or too diva-esque talent or something like that. That's not fun. But the idea of acting, that's always fun. Audiobooks can sometimes not be fun,
Mm.
just because you don't always know when you get asked, hey, you got a book? We got a book for you. You interested in? Sometimes they'll, you send a blurb and you're like, oh, okay. And then you actually start to delve into the book and you read it and you go, oh. Or sometimes when I'm reading, I'm like, okay, when is this book going to be over? You do have those moments, in audiobooks. And for some narrators, I don't know how some record day and night.
Mm.
Uh, and I've only done that once where I'm either directing or narrating, but not normally narrating back to back.
Right.
But it wears you out because I do my due diligence. So I do read my books. I do prep my books. I do all of that. So if I'm in a studio during the day, at night I'm prepping. So my whole day is gone. And I'm a slow reader. So it takes me time to read the book. Then I've got to prep the book. Meanwhile, I don't have a day open. So it's just constant. I need vacation. That's how I start to feel like that. And that's when it stops becoming fun. Sometimes when you just feel like you just keep taking it all and it keeps coming at you. And because what we do as artists in general, we don't know when it's going to stop.
Right.
You can get a pause and be like, oh, shoot, what am I going to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
You trained for an Olympic distance triathlon as a fundraiser, for which now a triathlon, of course, is swimming a mile, a full or was it 25 miles almost on a bike, and then a 6.2 mile run. But you had to learn to swim to run this competition.
Yes. So, okay, goes back to California. So walking, because we don't really walk out here, like you have to just make yourself walk.
Mm.
I can walk in my neighborhood, but most people will drive to something as simple as the corner store or the post office that might be 5 blocks away. Sometimes I will walk it. And so how the triathlon came about is something I wanted to challenge myself with. And I swear I was talking about walking with somebody and just not, the way New York is. And if I did it, I wanted something specific that supported cancer. So my dad that raised me died of lung cancer in 1992. And so I wanted something, even though I signed up with Team in Training.
Right.
And so in exchange, they train you and you raise money. And so I started training. I mean, my dad could dive. He and his brother, my uncle, we'd be out in the suburbs and my uncle had a pool. So they'd be diving, touch their toes and all this fancy stuff. Me, I have to stand like at the edge of the board and position myself and breathe really. And then the thing about me diving is I have an overarch. So my back would bend and my legs would be behind my head when I would dive. So it always freaked me out that I was going to flip over. But swimming, I never really learned how to swim. I used to doggy paddle. That's what my mom does. So I would doggy paddle. But I love the water. And so I really had to learn how to swim. So I did. And I can't say that by the time of my race that I had fully learned how to swim. I had never fully, in all the training we did, I had never fully swam the distance or even close to the distance of my race.
Right.
Not even close, because I would get in the water, I couldn't breathe. I was like, oh my God, oh my God. I was always like freaking out. Like, I mean, because I was like, I can't figure out how to breathe. I can't figure out the breathing. And so race day came. We were out in, oh gosh, what area it is? I can't think of it. It's probably about 5 hours away from LA, but like in wine country. It's beautiful out there. The race was. And I remember the day before my coaches, because we were at a campsite too. And that was the first time I went camping. So not only, yes, we were camping.
Wow.
So we weren't in hotels.
Swimming pool.
No, we trained in swimming pools, and then we went out and did we were training ocean swims in Long Beach out in California, and I could never get but too far because I was always out of breath. We had wetsuits on and everything. And then before our race, they actually took us up to the place where we would be racing so we could see it, learn the trail, all of that kind of stuff. So I'd seen it, but I'd never really done it. And so the day before the race, it was a weekend. My coaches all did a what is the full distance? So there's a smaller one. I feel like a sprint. I can't remember them. There's an Olympic. There's an Ironman. So there's I think a half Ironman and an Ironman, and they did, I believe, a half Ironman the day before, and the winds were ridiculous.
Oh wow!
But my coaches, they did it, and the next day, I remember looking at the buoy out in the water, and I'm like, wow, that's far, because the buoy was out to where they had to swim to, and then turn the turnaround point. So I was looking, and I was like, oh gosh. And so the next time I'm looking, because I'm waiting to see once the race is over, they got to bring it in for our race the next day. And I'm looking, and I'm like, they didn't move it yet. No, they didn't move it yet, because it was really far. And the day of the race, I'm looking, and I'm like, oh my God, it's way out there. They moved it, but it didn't seem like they moved it. And so I'll never forget, oh my gosh, the day of the race, they let you go out in waves, and then, you go out in waves, and I went out with the team and training crew. We all got our team and training hats on, our swim caps, and I was so nervous, and I started swimming, and I swear I must have swam from here to my kitchen, which is right there if you could see, and I was already like, okay, and so, and the Olympic distance is just short of a mile. So it's not even a mile, just short. But that's a long way to go. And I remember there was a young boy, Sam. He was on surfboard. So they have, got people out there in the water in case anything happens. Boats, surfboards, everything. And Sam was so sweet. I think he was 18. See how I stopped to ask questions. So Sam, I would stop and rest on Sam's board, and you could stop and rest. He could just not move me along. And I would stop, and I'd stand just sitting there talking to him and he would be like, okay, let's go. He was like, I'm going to go out, and you come catch me. You come up to me. And I was like, okay. And that is how I kept going. And there was another girl from another team in training who would not put her face in the water, and she swam the whole thing backwards on her back.
Wow.
And I don't know how she did it. But I remember when we finally got to the buoy, to the midpoint, and there's a time, a cutoff time to each part. And I said, how much time do I have left? And someone told me the time, and I was like, oh my gosh, and I took off. After that, I took off, and every once in a while I would stop and I go, okay, and then I would take off again, and they were like, come on, and I think I was the last person to come out of the water, and I was not the last person to go in. So I was the last person. It took me 2 hours, about 2 hours to get to the swim. When somebody really fast might have done that the fastest might have done it in like 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, my middle son was a competitive swimmer, and the mile was his main event. And 15 minutes for high school kids was 2
hours. And one of my coaches was standing there on the dock like, come on, And, they waved me in. And I got out the water, and I was like such in a rush to get on the bike. And she said, sit down, because you're going to pass out. And I'm trying to get the wetsuit off, and I almost passed out. So I sat down really quickly, and then I got on my bike. And the first mile of the hill, it goes straight up a hill for a mile. And I had done that during training. I was determined not to get off the bike and walk it. I was determined to ride the mile up the hill. And I caught a cramp in my thigh.
Ow.
So I got off the bike. I just massaged and patted my leg down, but I would not move forward. And I got back on that bike. And after that, the ride is my best section. And then when I got to the run, by that time it had to be over 100 degrees. So I had a water belt on. I had water in my hand. There were fire trucks out there. I was spraying myself with water on my head to keep myself cool. I mean, it was that one I had to stop. I could not make the full run nonstop. I was done by that time. But I can
imagine. Well, I can imagine, because I was stationed in the Marines in San Diego and Camp Pendleton. So yeah, running in that. But if you're not accustomed to it,
yes,
that's painful.
It is.
It's scary. But you made it. You finished the whole thing.
I finished the whole thing. I think my record was like 6 hours something. It was long. Like, that's extreme. But I did it, and I finished in time. I didn't get disqualified. I got my little medal. So yes.
That's quite an adventure.
It is. I'd like to do it again. I don't know when, but I would like to do a full one again. I've only done a leg of one in a different race. I did the bike, which is my stronger part.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
I look forward to seeing you do the next one. So I've got, as I mentioned earlier, I've got some roommates, my 4 leprechauns that rent out space in my basement here, and they want to come up and ask you some questions. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Hey guys, come on in. You ready?
Oh yeah, Mr. Basil, we're ready for the questions with Adenrele.
Yeah.
I like that name. Oh, by the way, my name is Feely. I'm the oldest of the 4 brothers, and this is Feely, not like Feely, but like Feely. That's me.
Okay, I love it. Thank you, Feely.
And this is my brother Neely, not knees like knees. It's Gnillii. That's his name. Neely, if you mispronounce it. And then our 3rd brother is Buffin, and then our 4th brother is Berthold. Buffin and Berthold. And Berthold is the youngest, and he's the only one of us without a beard. Would you imagine that? A leprechaun with no beard. But anyway, he doesn't grow a beard. So we came out here, but I have to tell you, Miss Adenrele, that we composed a song for you.
Oh, nice.
And I hope you like it. It goes like this. Ready?
Yeah.
Adenrele, you're so pretty, Adenrele. We like you. Oh, come here, Miss Adenrele. You like that song? We might record it, like if a big studio called us after this or something.
I would like that. That would be awesome. I would like a copy, please.
Oh, absolutely. We'll get that straight to you once it hits gold, especially. We'll even maybe give you like some royalties or something.
Oh, that would be nice.
There we go. Because, leprechauns can be famous too.
Yes,
So,
they can.
we have a couple of questions for you, and then Berthold is going to come up with a scenario. Okay. So, the first question is, what is your favorite kind of food?
My first mind says pizza.
New York or Philly pizza? Or does they make pizza in Philly? I know they do in Chicago. We've been there.
I'm going to say New York.
Yeah, with the crunchy bottom from the stone oven thing. At least that's what we had there on the street at the Three Guys Pizza or something like that. Basil was infatuated with their pizza at the little streets like things.
Great pizza in New York.
Okay, so you like pizza.
Mm-hmm.
What toppings do you like on your pizza?
Oh, so I like pineapples, green peppers, spinach, tomato, and maybe some onion.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
pretty good, but you know that many people believe that pineapples on pizza is kind of like sacrilegious. It's like
No,
heresy. Have you
no,
ever been threatened by people who saw you with pineapple pizza?
no, it is so good. It is so, I do not, unless it's just a cheese pizza, because I don't eat meat, I do not eat pizza without pineapples. I,
That's very interesting. So the pineapple replaces the meat for you, basically.
I guess you could look at it that way. Yeah.
Or the
It's so,
pineapple is just a pineapple, and that's fine. It could be that way too, you know. So, okay, so from this point, I'm going to pass it over to Bertolt, who's going to create a scenario for you out of thin air, and you're going to have to struggle to survive it, most likely.
good.
So, brace yourself. Bertolt, you ready? Yes, I'm ready. Here we go. Okay, so here's the scenario. Uh, what's the scenario? Let me think of a scenario real quick, and I'll be right back with you. Stall for time, guys. Adenrele, wait, you get the story going. Come on, let's do the story. Okay, here comes the scenario. The scenario is you're walking down the street, and one day, suddenly, 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles jump out of the sewer in front of you. But somehow they don't stink like the sewer. But they say, "Come with us to save the world, Adenrele." And you go to save the world, or you think about going to save the world. And what would you do?
To save the world?
Yeah, with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They're like, I don't know, 5 or 6 feet tall with big shells on their backs and samurai swords, and they like pizza.
Like pizza. What would I do to save the world? Okay, I'll keep my first thought out of this. It won't be too nice. What would I do to save the world? Hmm.
We can say save the world specifically from a giant octopus monster who hates pineapple.
He has to die. We all have to take all of our swords off and just cut off each one of his legs.
This woman is very violent.
Yeah.
Are we safe here?
And then we'd make calamari out of it.
Oh, that's good. We love calamari.
Yeah.
That was the best answer ever. Calamari dipped in hot sauce. Oh, that's so good.
Yes, we make some calamari and then we would enjoy it as he is now gone and everyone is safe and we can have all our pineapple.
That is a very good. Now I have this wonderful feeling of calamari and pineapple pizza.
Okay.
I think this might work.
I don't know about that one. Calamari and pineapple pizza?
Yeah, you got the crunchy crust, you got the sweet pineapple, and you got the chewy rubber. Calamari.
No, I think I'm going to keep them separate.
Well, to each their own, but I respect your choices in pizza.
If you try it, let me know what it tastes like.
Oh, absolutely, I will. I will. Okay, well, do we have anything else to say, boys? I don't have anything else to say. Buffin, you've been very quiet today. Why are you quiet? I'm just staring at her. Why? She's pretty.
Oh, thank you.
Can I just sit in the back of the booth and watch the rest of the show?
Okay, you can do that, Boffin. And the rest of you guys, too. Put your eyes back in your heads. Okay.
Oh,
Okay, they're apparently going to sit in the back of the booth and watch.
Yes, we are.
Okay, okay. Well, thank you very much. Good questions, good scenario, and good answers, Miss Adenrele. And that's a wrap on the show.
Thank you.
Terrific having you on, and I really appreciate the great conversation. I like a great conversation, and that's what this show is mostly about. Letting people know more about audiobooks, but at the same time, meeting the people that they listen to in their heads. Audiobook listeners spend hours and hours listening to our work.
Yeah.
And it's nice to get to meet the human. And they don't have to say, "Oh, you look," well, they probably do say, "You look way different." I know, at least about me, they look and say, "You don't look like that stud that you do in that action book. You kind of, I don't know." So, I actually met the author of a series that I've been doing since 2010. And we met like 2 years ago. And first thing we met at Thriller Fest, which is a big writers conference in New York City. And I walked up. I walked into the bar to meet him and some other guys that I knew online. And first thing out of his mouth was, "You don't look anything like the voice that you do in my book. You're kind of really heavy, aren't you? You're kind of fat." I was like, "Oh,
Oh,
yes, actually I am. Thank you very much." But, yeah, but the reason is I was doing his books that are about this Delta Force team, and everyone's like super fit. And so he had me pictured, and he knew that I had been in the Marines. And so he had me pictured like his characters, and he sees this 250-pound guy. He's like, "Oh, and I'm only like 5'8". So he's, wow, that's not what I was picturing."
isn't it amazing though what we do for people and their imagination
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
with the voice? So that's the one thing I appreciate about audiobooks is that, in casting for acting, stage theater, it's about a lot about what you look like, and then comes your talent. In audiobooks, it totally is your voice. That is your talent and what you look like all in one, how you make it sound, how you can make it sound like that big, handsome, sexy, six-pack guy or Barbie doll looking female or whatever. And you don't have to, quote unquote, be that thing.
It's good because I'm like a short 24-pack guy. So, anyway. Well, thank you very much for being on the show, and it's been great chatting with you. I look forward to eventually getting to another APAC or other event somewhere along the way where we can meet again face to face. And yeah, it's been good. Thanks.
Thank you, and thank you to all the little friends back there.
We love you, Adenrele. We're going to be singing that song all night. Adenrele, Adenrele. That song was written for you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Thank you, folks. Have a good night.
Thank you for listening to Voices in My Head, episode number 39, and that was Adenrele Ojo Allen, who is a wonderfully talented young lady who Boffin and the boys are apparently smitten with. Anyway, this show is copyright 2019 by Sandman Production Studios and Basil, and I am Gerald the Troll, a real troll, not the rude internet kind. And this is the last thing I'm going to say.